We'll see. We'll see, okay? I hardcore planned last week, and then it went out the window, like, day 2. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to let the mood... I mean, I have a set TBR. We're going to go with my set TBR, but we're going to let the mood on what I read take over. I love them, and a lot of stuff went down. Look like a lion's mane. I don't know what's happening here. I loved this one. I loved this series. Hold on, I haven't read this one yet. You can't say that you loved something if you haven't read it yet. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with week 2 of the Orilium Magical Readathon. So it is actually Sunday. Technically I should have started this vlog yesterday, but yesterday became a let's hang out and do nothing all day and watch movies. So that's what we did, and it was great. We watched a bunch of childhood movies from like both Chris and I's childhood, and I felt so much serotonin, you know, like it felt great. So I didn't really do a lot of reading yesterday, so I think I read a chapter before bed, and then I think I read some Friday night into Saturday. But if you saw last week's vlog, you know that the book that I'm bringing over is The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is the 3rd book in the From Blood and Ash series. This one is for, hold on, I've got it. I have my list of what each prompt is for. This is for the first prompt, so the ordinary for shapeshifting, which is to read a book about vampires, or a book that includes vampires in some way. This is a fantastical world, so almost everything is included, but I am on page 372. I think that's about 50 pages more than when I ended the last vlog, so I'm here. So I'm definitely... I think Goodreads is I'm 75% of the way through. I think I'm pretty closer to that. I am just about 3 hours, I think, left in my audiobook if I'm reading it at my speed. So I've got a good chunk still to go. There's a lot of things that can happen. Where we're at in the story right now, there are 2, like, they've made plans for like the next step in this story, and so like there's 2 things that are going to happen, and one thing needs to happen immediately and one thing's going to happen in about a month. So I'm thinking the thing that's going to happen immediately is how this book is going to end, and then the thing that's going to happen in a month is going to be the 4th book. So hopefully it won't be too long of a time difference. I mean, not time difference, but too long of a gap between when I finished this book and the 4th book. I did pretty good with this one. I picked it up relatively soonish after the 2nd book, which I'm nervous because what she likes to do is she likes to leave things on huge cliffhangers, and then the next book immediately picks up like right from where the other book ended. So this is my special fairy loot edition. I have the first 3 in this edition, and they're just absolutely beautiful, but I am very close to the end of this one. So I'm hoping this one I will finish either, I'm not sure I'm going to get to all of it today, but I want to finish it maybe tomorrow. That's the goal, and then we'll see what the rest of the week holds. I don't have a lot of like plans for this week. I have some shopping things I want to do. Like I need to run, they're errands. I need to run to a Goodwill. Okay, it's very exciting. So we'll see. I'll talk about it because I'm thinking the next book I pick up, or one of the next books that I pick up, will be some of the ones I've rearranged already, my TBR, because I keep saying this, I'm not falling out of love with fantasy. I've just read so much of it recently that now I'm back into my like contemporary / historical romance era. So I have a lot of things that I've I still have a lot of fantasy on this list, but I've rearranged a few things because there's some books that I really want to get to that like the audiobook came from my library and I can read it now. So like there's some things that I am kind of rearranging. But with that being said, I'm still on track to finish what I need to for this readathon. I'm very excited. Like I said, I don't have very much, so I'm sure it will not be long before I finish this book. And then I'm not sure what I'm going to pick up. I have a couple of ideas of what I want to pick up, but depending on the time of day. I know that sounds weird, but there's definitely like, there's a prompt here that I have to start a book before bed. So if I finish this before bed, then that'll be the next book I pick up. But if it's the middle of the day, then there's gonna be something else. I have ideas, okay? There are ideas, but I'll let you know when I finish this one what they come to, and what we'll see what happens, okay? We'll see what happens this week. That's basically the only plans I have, like solid plans, is to finish this first, and then we'll go from there. I've got some mangas and graphic novels. I'm trying to spread them out because I have 3, right? I had like 3 or 4, and 4 small things, 3 mangas or graphic novels and a short story. And so I'm trying to make each week have 1 short thing. So I'm not sure what I'll read this week, but that's my goal, is to like spread out so I don't just do all of the short things at once and then I get overwhelmed later on. So that's my plan. I don't know what I'm gonna read. Actually, I do have an idea. I have a thought. We'll see. We'll see, okay? I hardcore planned last week and then it went out the window like day 2. So we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna let the mood, I mean, I have a set TBR. We're going to go with my set TBR, but we're going to let the mood on what I read take over. So we'll see. But I have high hopes for this one. It's so far really, really good. I think I mentioned it in last week's vlog, but it's not as good in my opinion as the other 2 books. I think those were better. This one is feeling like a 4.5 versus a 5-star, but there's still, like, I know it doesn't look like a lot, but that's, for her writing, that's still a lot of things that could happen. It took me about halfway through the book to really get invested in what was going on, and now I think I'm very heavily invested, so I don't think that'll take too long. So anyway, that's an idea of what we're starting the week with, and I will let you know what comes next. I don't know what that'll be, but I'll let you know whatever it is. Hello, I'm here because I have finished The Crown of Gilded Bones and it got 5 stars. I know I was talking about it like it wasn't going to be as good as the first two, and I still think that the first two are better because the romance is not necessarily the most important part of this book. It's much more plot driven, which is totally fine. It is a fantasy romance, so like fantasy is the more relevant, key, important genre out of these two, but the second one specifically was way more romance heavy, I want to say. And while this did have its romantic elements, I mean, you can't really see, I tabbed the crap out of this, but the design here doesn't really show you. So like the warm colored things, so like orange, pink, purple, and red, those are all like romance things that happened in this book. So there's still a lot in this book, but it ended like this one. Yes, it was a cliffhanger in the sense of like lots of things happened, but based on how this ended, I like it felt like an end. Okay, let me phrase it. It's not the end of the story. There's like some big plot things happen at the very end of this book, so I have lots of questions and I need answers to the rest of this because like, oh my god, because like the next two books are out. Like that's where I'm at, is I have number 4. You can't see it, it's off screen, but it's down there. I just bought number 4, so that's clearly the next one, but number 5 just came out last month and I do have both on Audible. So, and then the 6th one, I read somewhere that's coming out at the beginning of next year, but maybe I made that up. The audiobook said that it's coming out in February of 24. So I have the end of the year to read the next 2. I think I could do it. Anyway, I have, things are about to happen. Things happened, and more things are about to happen. And there's definitely a cliffhanger, but it's less of a cliffhanger than the first 2, I want to say. It very much had like this very finite, definite, it had a very definite like punch of an end. Like the way it ended was just like Poppy being such a badass, honestly, and I kind of loved it. So it got 5 stars. I loved it so much. I can't really talk a lot about it because, again, 4th in the series, but I love them, and a lot of stuff went down. There's a lot more plot in this one. I think I already said that, but there's definitely a lot more plot in this one than the other one, because there's some questions about people's identities and bloodlines and the history and all that kind of stuff that actually plays into the story pretty well. So we get a lot of answers in this one, and even though we think we have answers, there's even more plot twists at the end that takes your answers that you think you know and throws them out the window. Like, I'm sure you saw how I dramatically closed this book when I was done. A lot of things happened. That's why I wanted to record a lot of the end. Like, I literally had like 4 or 5 chapters to read today to finish it, and I wanted to record most of it because I wanted to see my reactions to it. So I hope you enjoyed that part of it. The moral of the story is it was really good. I'm obsessed with the series. I was worried because I've heard things about people not loving the 2nd or the 3rd one after they read the 1st one. And while, yes, the story just keeps going and it's going in like a very different direction, obviously with these being such big books and there being 6 or 7 of them, I just loved it. I was really worried, but it was amazing. So I finished this one. Yay. This is for my so the ordinary in shapeshifting. So it was the very first prompt of shapeshifting, which I have finished, which is the only thing in shapeshifting that is required for my like the main career that I want to do, which is elemental studies. But the other 2 things in shapeshifting are required for the wild form druid, which is the 2nd one that I want to do. But like I mentioned in the first vlog, I'm trying to focus on the elemental studies prompts first. So with that being said, let's take a look real quick at what is required, because I need to figure out what I'm going to pick up next. So I have a lot of options here for the Master of Elements career. The first in animal studies is required, which all 3 of them are required for wild form druid as well, but for just elemental studies, only the first one's required. So I'm focusing on that one first, and I think this is going to be good because it'll be a break between fantasy. That's what I want to do, is I want to do like a fantasy, non-fantasy, and kind of like switch back and forth and see how that goes. We'll see. But the one I'm going to pick up is To Swoon and to Spar by Martha Waters, which is a historical romance. This one is the fourth, I believe. Yes, the fourth in the Regency Vows series by Martha Waters. I believe there's only one more, because there is a new cover for the next one that I can't remember what the title is, but it's coming out next year, I want to say. And I believe that's it. That's where we're ending it, which is fine, because like these are fun and I do enjoy them and I do enjoy her writing, but the last few, like I feel like the series started really good and it's just kind of gone downhill. Like the third one that I read was a 3-star, which is still a good rating, but compared to the first two being like 5 and 4, it's just kind of gone downhill. But I have high hopes for this one. I'm really excited. It was for Pet Pick, which I did with my TBR, so if you haven't seen that, I'll leave it linked above. But basically, G got both of her cats to pick a number from 1 through 4, and like you assigned books to each of those numbers, and then based on that, that's kind of like her way of doing the pet pick if you don't have a pet, which I do not. So that worked out pretty well. This is the one that was chosen, and it's on, I don't know, like it's on my TBR to read by the end of the year. It's a new book. It came out earlier this year. I want to say in April sometime. It also is on my summer TBR. Like there's a few things that this has been on, but it's not too long. I'm hoping to get through it relatively quickly. I do enjoy the audiobooks. I've found the audiobook on Scribd, so that's how I will be listening to it. And this is what we're going to do next. So this one follows, from what I can surmise from the back. I mean, of course, once I read it, we'll know more. But we have our main character, Viscount Penvale, who is a character we've met. He is the brother of one of the main characters from the previous books, and I believe he showed up in the second one. Maybe he showed up in the first one. I can't remember. I think he's friends with all of the guys as well. But he was a big part of the second book, and so he really wants this land that is entitled to him, but he wants his ancestral home is what they say here on the back. But his uncle has been in charge of it, and now he's ready to give it to him, but his condition is that Penvale marries the uncle's ward named Jane Spencer. He's like, all right, fine. And so they meet in London, and they do not get off on the right foot. You don't know what that means, but they don't get off on the right foot. They decide to continue with the marriage and do it like a marriage of convenience of sorts. So you do have that trope, which I'm excited about. But then it says here on the back that like she's doing a bunch of stuff in this home with her like lady's maid that's supposed to try to maybe get Penvale to leave. Hinted here is that there's supposed to be a haunting, like she stages a haunting. So it sounds like maybe she's trying to prank him of sorts, which is really reminiscent of the first book in the series, because that's how our main couple in the first book were estranged and got back together. So I'm interested to see where this is going to go. I'm gonna try to focus on this because, like I said, I'm a little nervous going in based on how well the third one went. But her writing's really humorous, and the people who do the audiobooks, there's usually 2 narrators. There's usually a female and a male narrator. I don't know if that's what they're going to do this time or not, but usually when they do that, the guy is really funny. Like, he's very posh, which is the point. This is a very, like, uppity kind of vibe to this, so I remember enjoying that a lot. So I'm hoping that maybe we get the same people again, but either way, this is the one that I'm going to do next. So I will let you know when I get to this one. I am very excited about this. So that'll be, I don't know how much I'll read today because it is getting later in the afternoon. I mean, it's not late, it's not even 3 o'clock yet, but we're later in the afternoon. I have plans. I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch Red, White, and Royal Blue finally, because it's only been out for like 3 days, but I had plans to watch it on Friday, and then I decided to bake a pie instead. So that's what I did. So I'll let you know how it is. I'm really excited. I've heard really good things about it. Like, people who have watched it have said that it's really good compared to like other adaptions, so I'm really excited to see how it goes. Either way, I just wanted to come on and let you know that I finished The Crown of Gilded Bones, and I'm going to start To Swoon and to Spar soon-ish. I'll probably start it sometime today, but I probably won't get too much of it read. But this is my next one. This is my historical romance. I feel like it's the only one that's on my list here that is like required for any of my careers. I have so many historical romances that I would like to read, but that's the only one that's like got on this list. So we'll see how it goes. I'll let you know. I'm excited though. Hello friends! It is well, it's actually not that late. It's like 9:30? Almost 10, so maybe it's later than I think it is. Anyway, it's late on Friday, so I thought I'd come on here and wrap up this video. This lighting is not great, but here we are. This is what we're working with. So I thought I'd kind of wrap up, give you some updates. As you saw earlier today, I finished To Swoon and To Spar by Martha Waters, and I gave this one 4 stars. It was very, very good. I can't quite put my finger on what it was about this book specifically, because like I mentioned when I told you guys I was planning on reading this book, I was very hesitant going in because the 3rd book in the series was very middle of the road for me, and I think it's because, well, I think it is because the couple in that one is not my favorite in the series. There's like a group of friends in this series, and they are like coupled up is basically what it is. So there's the couple from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd books, this couple, and then there's 2 more friends that I know for a fact are going to be in the next book. So technically there's 5 couples, and I'm excited to see where the next one goes. I think it's coming out at the beginning of next year. I actually don't know when it's coming out, so I'll be excited, but it'll be the last one, so I feel like that makes sense. I mean, this is a very fun world, and I have enjoyed my time reading it, but it can get very tiring very quickly, so I could see the author kind of being done with this world. That's a little bit of a tangent, but this book I loved. This was a perfect time to read this book too, because it was giving those romance vibes, those historical romance vibes, but there is a level of spookiness to this because of the house that this couple lives in. When I was introducing this book, I kind of told you what it was about, which is all very true. The one thing I will add is that Jane's story is that she is the ward of the uncle who owned this place before Pinvale bought it, and so this is his ancestral home. He grew up there with his sister, but because of his uncle and how his parents, I think his parents died when they were pretty young. I can't remember if we know why or how they died, but they died when they were pretty young, and they, in doing so, kind of gave up this house to the uncle. So the uncle owns it and is letting Pinvale buy it, basically, and the ward, being his wife, is just one of the little caveats. And the reason he wants to get rid of it is because Jane moved in when she was 10, I think. That's a number that's coming to my brain. And she didn't have anybody. It was just her. Her parents have died. I don't know if she had any siblings, but if she did, I don't think she did, because it was just her. So she was in this house, and she's basically spent her entire life being told what to do by men, and one of those being that this was her home. She fell in love with this house, and this guy has come in and kind of told her how to function and what to do about it, and she does not want to be controlled by men anymore. So she and the house, what's the housekeeper? That's her name, and some of the other servants are helping them, basically staged all these hauntings that were not actually hauntings, clearly, and it scared the uncle off to sell it. And so when he's told to Pinvale, she started to do the same things because she wanted Pinvale to go back to London so that she could be alone in this house, and she would be secure in that because they got married. So it is her husband's house, but if he left, she could run it the way that she wanted to. Of course, it changes throughout this because they start to care for each other and things of that nature. But because of this haunting element, it gave it a little bit of a fall vibe. She comes to England in January because it's really, really cold. And so when they go back to the country, it's winter. And then throughout this, I think we make it to May, maybe, by the time, yeah, May. So spring. So it's from winter to spring. So it's got that cold vibe that you want when it comes to fall. And then it's got that spookiness, even though they're fake spooky, they still are searching this house for potential things that could jump out at them. So you have that level of suspense, which I think is why it feels very fall. But it was still really good. I still loved this story. I loved the 2 of them. They are so drastically different, and Jane is incredibly shy. That's her thing, is she does not understand social norms very well, so she hates being in London because she hates being made fun of for not understanding how to hold a conversation and things like that. So she is very hesitant she was, kind of bullied when she was in school because of that, and so her shyness has always been an issue, and so she just never left the house, really. She just got very, very close with the servants in the house, the housekeeper, and like stayed to the library. So when Pinvale comes, he kind of like takes her out of her comfort zone, but in doing so, he like discovers these things about her, and she is starting to leave the house more and understanding people in the village more. Just like there's a lot more to it than just that. But I loved them as a couple. They made each other better. They were genuinely really sweet. And one thing I noticed about this book, which is kind of interesting for the series, is this series is relatively smutty, especially the second book. But the first two books, I would say, are the smuttiest in the series. And then the third one has its moments, but isn't like ridiculously smutty. This one has a scene, and I'm not even sure I would call it a scene. It's like 2 pages, and it's very much not described. So if you were someone who likes humorous writing and wants to try out Martha Waters, this is the book in the series to do it. Yes, this book spoils all of the couples for the previous 3 books, but at the same time, like, they give you the relevant information you need to know for this story, so you can kind of read it out of order and it's not the end of the world. It's just like timeline-wise, the first book took place a year ago, and then since then, all these other couples have gotten together. If this author is interesting to you and you want to try her out, but you don't like smut, this is definitely the book in the series to try, and I genuinely enjoyed my time. So I loved it. I kind of was reading it on and off this week, and then really picked it up yesterday and today. So I finished this book, and then as you saw, I started Stoneheart, which is the short story from this series. It's from this collection, which is a bunch of short stories in the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert. Stoneheart is like the prequel. So it's the first part of this book. It's 74 pages, but I have to read it physically. So I did start it. I didn't get very far. I got like a chapter, so like about 10 pages. Not too far. This is the one that I'm going to be bringing into next week, as well as Earth. I realized I never talked about Earth at the beginning of this vlog, but I definitely forgot it existed because I haven't touched it all week, and I really need to, because it's in a prompt that's required for my career, and I'm a little bit terrified, not gonna lie. But anyway, so those 2, I guess, are the ones that I'm taking over to next week. This one's a short story. I was hoping to get through more this week. I only finished 2 things, which is The Crown of Gilded Bones and To Swoon and To Spar, but it was still good. These are both still required for my career. I can't remember which one this is required for, but I'll talk about it at the beginning of next week's. Well, I feel like it's Elemental Studies. I feel like it's in there somewhere, one of those 3. But I'll talk a little bit more about that at the beginning of next week. I have plans for next week as far as like what I'm reading. But yeah, I only read these 2 because I watched Red, White, and Royal Blue this week. I didn't watch it on Monday like I planned, or yeah, I didn't watch it on Monday. I watched it on Tuesday instead. Life just, I don't know, I lost track of time and it got too late, so I didn't watch it on Monday. But I watched it on Tuesday, and I've watched it twice more since. I have a problem. I am genuinely obsessed with this movie. I think it's the guy who plays Henry, Nicholas. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It starts with a G. I've seen him in a couple of things, and I've really enjoyed him in the other things that I've seen him in. And I think he's the reason, because I just watched another movie tonight with him in it. Because I'm a little bit obsessed. It's a problem. Anyway, so Red, White, and Royal Blue has taken over my life this week, and I'm going to blame that on the fact that I only ended up reading 2 things instead of the, what did I say, 3 or 4 books I needed to read this week, which is fine. We still have 2 weeks left in the month. We got time. We're a little over halfway, but that's okay. We've got time. So that's what I keep telling myself. Anyway, I have plans for next week because of Red, White, and Royal Blue. That's kind of put me in a very specific reading mood, but we'll talk about those at the beginning of next week's vlog. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope your reading is going well. As always, let me know how your reading is going. Tell me all of the fun stuff down below. How are you doing on your career? Are you halfway through? Are you more than halfway through? Are you doing some of the extra stuff? I realized that I decided to look into what was required for a dragon trainer, dragon writer, dragon trainer, whatever that side one is. You have to read 2 books featuring dragons and 1 book and watch 1 thing featuring dragons. And you don't have to do that during this month. You can do it whenever. Well, Fun fact, Crown of Gilded Bones includes a bunch of different types of creatures, and one of those happens to be a dragon. So if you are reading the series, you have dragons to look forward to in this one. So I technically have read one of those, which is a little bit exciting. Nothing else on my TBR includes dragons, I can promise you that. That's a little bit of a side note, but why did I even start talking about that? I don't know. Anyway, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, like I was trying to say. Please let me know all your thoughts on either of the books that I mentioned in today's video, today's vlog, or how your reading is doing. I would love to know all of your bookish thoughts down below. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so check all that out, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!